Hey everyone, welcome to The Zest, the official podcast of Orange Coast Magazine. I'm Chelsea Ranieri, and today's guest is a four-time world surfing champion and was named one of the 100 greatest sportswomen of the century by Sports Illustrated. She's also credited as being instrumental in establishing equal pay for women in surfing. Thank you so much for being here today, Lisa Andersen.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And if I could just fangirl for a quick second, I did have your Roxy posters on my wall when I was growing up. But as I was researching you, I was just so inspired by your story. It literally your life sounds like a movie. So I've been just very excited to get to talk with you.
Great. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So let's start at the very beginning of your story. You grew up in Long Island, New York. And when you were 13, you moved to Ormond Beach, Florida. So what prompted that move?
Well, really, I was born in New York and born in Long Island. I moved when I was 3 from New York to Virginia. And then I lived in Virginia, kind of like most of that, like elementary, pre-middle school type thing. And then moved to Florida. I was about 13 when I moved to Florida. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. And was it for your parents' jobs or?
Yeah, exactly. Like my parents had owned restaurant businesses in Virginia and they weren't very successful. So my dad wanted to start over in Florida. So we just packed it up.
Oh, I always have like a cool ideal of like your parents owning a restaurant. It seems like it'd be so fun. So when did you first get into surfing?
So yeah, right about when I moved to Florida, I was like, trying to fit into, like the local kids and just trying to find friends and all that stuff. And, I happened to move really close to the beach, like I'm, maybe like 6 houses away from the beach.
Oh my God.
And the school bus kind of dropped me off like right there, like near, there's like a, where you could drive onto the beach because you can drive here in Daytona on the beach. So I was like, wow, everyone kind of hung out there after school. And then I was like, I noticed people surfing and I'm like, all right, I want to try that because I was a little, I was kind of into just, sports in general. So I was like, I want to try that. And I love the ocean. So all it took was just that one wave and I was hooked.
Wow. Did you like immediately pick it up? Because I remember my first time surfing and it was brutal. I haven't really done it since.
I did. I was a really quick learner. I just in a 1-year period of time, like just, got so good so quickly. And
yeah. Well, I read that when you were 16, you had been in juvenile detention and planned to run away when you got out. So can you share a bit about that?
So I was mucking around as a kid. I'm not gonna lie. I got myself into some, troubles, nothing crazy, a lot of just, unlucky situations, really. I wasn't a bad kid. And I think when I was put in juvenile, it was because I had borrowed a moped from a close friend, but didn't return it. And then he reported it missing. So when I got caught with it was technically grand theft. And I was like, wait, I didn't steal this thing. So next thing you know, I'm in juvenile detention. Plus I had been truant a bunch from school. So that kind of didn't look good on my record. And I was in juvenile for about 9 days. My parents kind of left me in there to teach me
9 days. Dang.
Teach me a little lesson. But I got out and I was kind of home and I had like this thing where I just had to be like on house arrest kind of thing and go to all these meetings and, because I was such a bad kid. Right. But, my family was going through it. My dad was a drinker and stuff like that. So we were kind of always in those kind of, situations. But I basically was like going, man, I need to figure a way out of this. And just took it upon myself to purchase a ticket to California. And I had a close friend already there. And I just, I drove out I got a taxi to Orlando Airport and bought a one-way ticket to LA. And yeah, that's where I began the whole mission.
At 16. That's wild. I can barely navigate an airport at 32.
Hey, I'm telling you, it was scary. Like I've never been on a plane before. And I don't really truly remember what I was feeling other than probably fear, but like just, that that just like drove me to like stick it out. I wasn't going to come back. I obviously was not coming back. So I just stuck it out. I mean, I didn't get on a plane right away too, because, and back then you could buy a ticket without an ID. You didn't have to have any of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like you could just show up and buy a ticket without, you don't even have to go through security. They didn't have security check or anything like that. So it was a different time back then where you could, it's pretty easy to just disappear.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Well, what was your experience like when you made it out to Orange County?
Well, I mean, I lived in Huntington Beach for quite a bit and, was surviving there, like with little jobs, like, bussing tables and things like that. But like, finding the right people to be around, like the people that were, good influences and, started competing in little amateur events and started winning them and then getting noticed and obviously like so mysterious because I didn't tell people where I was from. I was just kind of like, I was afraid. I was afraid to tell people where I was from or what I was doing because then I thought they might report me report me to the police or something like that. So I spent a majority of the time in the ocean from sun up to sundown to be less detected. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I was just a water rat.
Yeah. Did your parents know where you were at the time?
My mom had no idea for like the longest time. I think it was a year that I had not spoken to her. And a close friend of mine went to college at USC and knew that I was there. And then told a friend of ours. And then that friend told my mom.
Oh, okay.
And so somehow we got on a phone call, like, cause I was hanging out at a surf shop and, we got on a call and then, I just told her I was fine and, what I was doing. And during that whole year that I was gone, I was mailing her like newspaper articles, because I was making the newspaper and I was cutting them out. And then I was mailing them to her to show her that I wasn't one, dead, and two, that I was actually doing what I set out to do. And that, to prove that it was a legit thing, like, that I'm serious. You know what I mean? There was nothing bad about surfing. She just, the whole stereotype of surfers from her generation and, relating, pot smokers and partying, beach, the beach party situation, which I wasn't doing any of that. So it was just funny. It was just funny to me. My parents were just like, oh my God, you can't do that. That's like the last thing you're going to do. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah. God, that must have felt so good to show them that you were winning at it too and showing them like you're getting written about in papers.
It did. I was proud of that. And I also wanted them to be proud more than anything. I just wanted them to accept it. And yeah.
Well, in 1986, you took your first trip abroad to Cornwall for the World Amateur Championship. So how old were you at this point and what was the outcome of that competition?
So, so through that whole first year of competing in amateur events, I kind of secured a spot in the U.S. For the U.S. representing the U.S. team abroad in the World Junior Championships, which was in Cornwall, in England. That was my first trip overseas, so I got a passport, and I flew over there with a team, and it was a great experience. Not only met a lot of people and other teams from other countries that I would later on travel with in the future. And then also what I would work with in the Quicksilver, Roxy industry, in surf industry with them. So it was kind of cool, like not knowing that at the time, but and I was still a little rebellious type of person. So I was a little irritated because our team coach was unhappy with me and my competing strategy. And I sort of decided to stick it to him and not catch any waves at all. And, and I just ruffled some feathers, like I'm not like that now, but geez, I was a brat back then. But I ended up finishing third overall. And it wasn't, for me, it wasn't really about winning the thing. I think that our coaches were just trying to get points so we could win as a team, which we ended up winning. But yeah.
Wait, what didn't he like about your competing strategy?
I think that, I think it was more or less just like, I was being like, I feel like I was being bullied on like how to like, what to do. And like, I just didn't really do well with being told what to do, obviously. Yeah. And I think it was just like and competing was struggle for me sometimes. Like my strategies weren't the best. Like I didn't always have like a plan or strategy. And I was struggling with that because my performance wise, like my abilities were there, but my smarts weren't there as far as like, building a heat around my abilities, like I was kind of making a lot of mistakes and not paying attention. And I think that I was frustrating for coaches, and it was for a lot of my coaches in the years later after that too. So I realized I'm not meant to have a coach because I don't, I kind of want to do it on my own. I'm a little bit like stubborn, and then I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah. So when you're going into a heat, how do you create a strategy for surfing? Because I've seen the US Open and stuff, and I'm just like, oh, it just looks like you do a bunch of like as many cool tricks as you can in one heat, but I'm assuming that's not the case.
Yeah. I mean, these days it's, you have to have a plan because every single competitor's at a high level. I mean, and when I was competing, I mean, there wasn't a ton of girls. There were a bunch, but there wasn't like it is now. And, in the way that surfing was back then, it wasn't as professional in a way that, like now it's in the Olympics. So there's like a whole team behind you. You know what I mean? Like back then it was just you and your suitcase and, your gusto, you know what I'm saying? And so I think that with competing, and strategies and all that, it was just having a game plan, before you paddled out. Like, were you preparing yourself for the conditions, for where the waves were the best, which waves were coming in, what spot, like intervals. There's a lot of techniques you could use to kind of, prepare yourself for the best way you could. I mean, obviously Mother Nature is going to deal you what it deals you, but also just the strategy around the other competitors. Are you going to let them take waves from you? Are you going to fight for those waves? Are you going to be aggressive? I was submissive and I didn't fight for waves. I just let people paddle circles around me because I didn't like confrontation, and I didn't like that when people got all like, aggro. And so I would just kind of try to let my surfing do its talking. And that didn't always work, because other people were surfing better, or if not, you know what I mean? So they were doing the work. And it took me many years to learn that.
Yeah, I would be the same way. I definitely also do not like confrontation. So I would also be very submissive with it. Like if it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
But well, you mentioned Quicksilver, and in 1992, you received your first sponsorship deal with them. So how did this accomplishment alter your career at that time? What did it do for you?
I mean, it was, well, I know that it was meant to be for real, but also because, it was a new era in women's surfing. It was like, being able to gain a sponsor that was mainly, sponsoring male surfers and stuff. And for them to kind of include me was a big step for the surf industry. Everyone kind of started to take notes on that. And also other brands started to, bring women on their team, stuff like that. So it really changed the whole trajectory.
Wow.
And that was fun, you know what I mean? And I mean, I loved being with Quicksilver and Roxy. It was a dream come true. It was also, I just love their look. I love their style, and I love the brand itself and the logo and everything about it. It was like, and it was the number one brand. It was like, that's what I went for. Whatever was the top is what I wanted. But also they had a great, team members. They had great, their whole cast and crew at that company was amazing, and they were all iconic in some ways because they were all surfers, and surfers created that brand. And they were just authentic, and that's what I wanted to be.
And you had mentioned to someone at Quicksilver that you wanted board shorts, which eventually led to the start of Roxy, which I didn't know this story. And my sister and I had those Roxy board shorts. I remember like with the day we got them, they were like the coolest thing. So what is the story? How did that come about?
I mean, obviously board shorts are a big product in surfing because, everyone's got a pair. It's just essential, there's a couple stories, there's one that I always wore board shorts because I was uncomfortable with my, body. And I think that also being so young and being made fun of and, that kind of stuff, body shaming and just, joking or not joking, it just made me uncomfortable. And also it held me back from like really surfing in an explosive way, because you always, if you're in a swimsuit, it doesn't really,
Yeah, right.
it doesn't go together, right? I mean, it can, but it's not the most comfortable thing. And so I just was like very shy about that and uncomfortable. And I would always wear the men's shorts out because there weren't any for ladies. And so I'm wearing these giant shorts, right, that are like hitting my kneecaps and rashing me to death because they were just too long, and like I looked even more goofy. But for me, I felt empowered by them because, I didn't have to worry about my flesh,
Right.
being seen by a million people. But that's another thing I had to grow out of too. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of growing pains for me in my surfing career, and board shorts kind of helped me kind of evolve in my own way. But also I love the fashion side of it, and I love the creativity of it. And, that took me in another place I'd never dreamed, because I really, really got involved with that and the functionality and of that whole product. And the other story basically is, a few of the crew in Hawaii, like Bob McKnight and a few others from Quicksilver, are hanging out on the North Shore, and there's a crew of female bodyboarders at Pipeline, and they're all wearing men's that's the smallest size board shorts out there bodyboarding. And those guys were just sort of like, a light bulb went off, like, boom, oh, we should make board shorts. And then here I come, and it was just like the perfect,
Whoa.
The perfect couple. It was just like the board short and me, and I was the poster child for that. And then it's what I wanted to. And so we made the board short. We took basically like one of their shorter models from the late 70s or early 70s, whatever, the 70s in general. But like Tom Carroll would wear these like super short, tight, like you're familiar with Echo Beach and that whole era, but it was basically that kind of short because it was, short and cute. And so that's when that was born. And I was just like, that was my superhuman, like my cape.
Yeah.
Like
I like remember.
Yeah, it was
That's
awesome.
so cool.
I mean, it was an amazing experience. Like, it just was like so cool to be part of.
Yeah, it's iconic. Well, after giving birth to your daughter, you made an incredible return to surfing, finishing 7th in the world rankings, and then going on to win your first world title in 1994. And then you continued to dominate the sport for 3 consecutive years, even becoming the first woman in 15 years to appear on the cover of Surfing magazine. So take me back to what it was like to reach this point in your career. It sounds like just everything was going amazing.
Use me. So that was definitely a crazy year. That whole, I mean, before I had Erica and won the world title, I had a severe back injury, and it wasn't before I had Erica, and it caused a severe back injury in time for me because I wasn't physically fit enough to like do the surfing I was doing, and I didn't take care of that whole recovery. And so I ended up like, herniating a couple of discs, and but I was still competing in pain. Like, I just kept going. I was like, another thing, I wasn't going to stop. And eventually I had to, because I could barely walk. And I went ahead and just did some training in Sydney, Australia beforehand. And, with a lot of support, I got through it and won the world title there. And just sort of kept it going. I learned so much from that, especially like being prepared with your physical body, and taking care of yourself. There's just so many lessons in this whole journey. It's crazy.
That's so true. It's crazy how much pain women can really tolerate. Surfing with like that, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it was the most painful thing I've ever dealt with, and it's reoccurred a couple more times in my life. Unfortunately, I've had to deal with it quite a bit. It's no fun. So, with that said, like, looking back, I'd be like, make sure you take care of yourself. Like, you only have one body.
Right. Well, speaking of your back injury, so you took some time away from them and from surfing, and you returned in 2000 and lost to your rival Lane Beachley, only to beat her in the Billabong Pro in France. And when I was reading that story of how you lost her and it was devastating, and then you came back and you beat her, I just like the wave of energy I got from reading that was so incredible. So how did that feel when you came back?
It felt good. I mean, of course, it feels good to beat your rival. Of course, it feels good to get one back. I mean, that's the competitor in me. But it was, it sucks to lose. No one likes to lose. I mean, I mentor a few girls still now, and I tell them all the time, like, they come in after they lost, and you just got to give them a moment, and then you just come out to them later and say, so, yeah, what did you learn? Because you always learn something, and I learned that, I learned that you never give up. And, it's just one of those things where, you don't know how good winning feels until you've lost. You know what I'm saying? And that was a perfect example of that, because when I won, I was like, that was the last event I won on the tour. And it was so awesome. And nothing against her, because, like, her and I are great, but it was just like, it was like, beating the best in the world, really, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and after you came back from injuries, like, it's such a great story. Well, to fast forward a bit, can you talk a bit about what the Quicksilver Crossing was and your role in it?
Oh my gosh. So the Quicksilver Crossing was like, it was such a wild adventure. It was this crazy, like, salvage boat, like, wasn't a luxury, fancy boat, right? This thing had some, some definite, like, his history in it, right? And at the top of the, I don't know what you call it, the lookout, like on the top of the bird's nest there was an old toilet at the top.
Oh,
so it had so much character, like, it was just cool. And when the crossing happened, I mean, the whole purpose of this was to circumnavigate the equator in search of waves, like waves that have never been discovered or surfed, or just to do it, just to take the boat through the Panama Canal and bring it up to Great Lakes, like all of that. I wasn't on it the whole time. I'm bummed that I didn't get to go to many places, because we had to keep rotating the crew. But I went to some amazing places and spent so much time on the boat, and it was a perfect timing for me, because when I retired from the tour, I just jumped on the boat. And I got to keep my surfing. My surfing just went up, 10 levels from that, and it was just because I got to surf perfect waves all the time, and just having fun at sea without leaving all your shit on the land, and turning off and just getting on the boat and disconnecting. I mean, we didn't have the iPhones then. The iPods just came out. We just got iPods, and, like, it was great, because you need to have music or you're gonna die, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, I could not survive without music, and that being out in a boat and just with your headphones on and, like, waiting to discover something that's never been surfed is a great feeling. And I love the adventure, and I love being at sea. So it was an amazing opportunity, and perfect for me. The timing was, getting to explore. My kids were, a little bit more grown up, so I could kind of leave for a longer amount of time, and that just kept going for maybe for several years.
Wow. Oh my God. I didn't even imagine several years. That's incredible. What a cool adventure.
I needed something to do and keep myself out of trouble. So,
well, as I mentioned before, you've been instrumental in pushing for equal pay in surfing. So can you walk me through some of the challenges that you face and how you were able to advocate for change within the industry?
I think that it's been a massive, like, team. I mean, the entire team of women surfing has been pushing for that since day one. I mean, generations before me, were always pushing for that, always hoping and praying. And I think it was just a massive, massive manifestation from all of us to get to that point of, like, it finally happened, and the support of the financial support from the Ziff family, of supporting the WSL, and professional surfing helped out us tremendously. And, the Olympics kind of, in happening is just bringing more opportunity to the girls. Like, they're so amazing, and they're so marketable, and they're cute, and they're, their vulnerability on their socials is what's, bringing all this opportunity for them, I think, because I think they're just amazing. But, the equal prize money is, I know that what happened, I think that there was an event somewhere, and forgive me because I don't know the exact details, but I know there was an event somewhere, I think in Indonesia or something like that. And it was a junior event, I think. And so there was a photograph of the male junior, the kid holding up his prize check, and then the female, and it was substantially different. And I think it just created this uproar. And, I mean, it's always been there, but it just took that one time where everybody focused on it. And it just, it created a huge backlash. And then the wheels just started turning. And then, WSL made that announcement, and it was like a dream come true. I know it wasn't in my era, but it was certainly something that we've all hoped for. And a very proud moment for us in the sport of surfing, because no other, sport has that same equal prize money. I know that soccer struggled too. And it was just like incredible to be in surfing at that moment.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Well, in the 2019 documentary Trouble, the Lisa Andersen story, it paints a very personal portrait of your life. Can you talk about how this film came about?
Yeah. I was working with a few people, a few close friends of mine. And, there was always, I've always had sort of these partnerships, movie deals, connections with people in the movie world to do a story, in which I'm actually doing one right now, but it's not a documentary. So that's exciting. But then it was like, now's the time, you know what I mean? Like, there's a time when you feel like, okay, it's time to do that. I think I've matured enough to handle it, or I think there's enough time has gone by to understand it, to be able to explain it and walk through it and share it with people, because you're hoping that, you inspire someone or touch somebody that's, that could use that as some kind of inspiration, or, you know what I'm saying? And so, basically, that I work together with Charlie Smith and Cersei Wallace. And, it took us quite a bit, because we tried to find lots of footage. It was really difficult to find all that, because not a lot of female surfers were filmed all the time back then. So there was a lack of footage, but I had fortunately saved a lot of home movies. So there's a lot of those were part of it. So it's kind of, fun. It was a fun project. I will tell you though, that it definitely, did something to me mentally and emotionally, because I was so when it came out, and I realized, oh my God, like, I'm just this vulnerable person right now. Everything is laid out there. How I didn't know how I was going to react or feel about it. Because I really was like, okay, this is cool. I can do this. And then I kind of had a meltdown. I was like, yeah, I don't know if I did the right thing now. Like, I was like exposed, you know what I mean? And I felt freaked out. I mean, I was literally like wanting to go sit at the bar and have a beer before I did the Q&A, because I was like stressed. And I think that it was like a healing thing for me, at the same time talking about the past, but also it just sort of, it was unsettling at the same time. And I had to like kind of go through that and work through that. There was a lot of stuff I obviously hadn't healed in me and stuff like that. So I figured that it just took me a little bit of time to kind of get through that, and I was like a little bit, parts of me, to be honest, were ashamed of some of the things, you know what I mean? And people knowing about it. And the only thing that really, one of the best things about that film later on, after I got all this feedback, was I never received a negative comment about it. I was always like, oh my God, thinking the worst, you know what I'm saying? And so it was all in my head, because basically like I had such positive feedback and support that, and so in hindsight, I wish I wasn't such a freak out.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that though. I can't even, it sounds like a therapy session almost, and then filmed to be broadcast, telling your most vulnerable aspects of yourself.
Yeah.
That sounds it's very brave to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I want to say I highly recommend it, but but I'm like, maybe go get a therapist first.
Well, is the film you're working? Oh, sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
Oh, is the film that you're working on now? Is it about you?
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh my
I
God.
I can't go into too much, but like it's that itself has been really fun because um again I'm further in my years, so I can kind of and it not being like a documentary like super raw, it's more of it's got some fiction, to it. It will have be fictionalized, but it's still based on my life. And I've been waiting for so long to do this. Like I've been waiting forever to do it, and I can't wait for it to get there, hopefully.
Oh my God. I literally said at the beginning of this episode, your life is literally like a movie. I can't wait for this movie to come out. Can you say when you think it might come out
I
or?
don't know. I mean, we're still working on it. We're still writing it.
Okay.
So yeah, and it takes a while. You know what I mean? Like
Totally.
just a lot of like, it's insane to me how so many things are buried in there that you don't remember until something's triggered, and then you realize, oh my God, that's right, and then that happened, which has been buried away in some little hole in your head, and it comes out, and you know what I'm saying? The whole adventure of doing the story is therapeutic, and talking
Yeah.
about your relationships with your folks and your kids and all that and everyone else in your life and what they meant to you. I think I'm looking forward to being able to talk to people and just tell them about the people that meant so much to me. You know what I mean? It's not so
Yeah.
much about
Yeah.
like my dramas. It's about the people that mean a lot to me, and they deserve to be, you know, shining bright stars too.
Yeah. I love that. Well, with such an incredible legacy, when you reflect on your journey, what do you feel is the most important impact that you've made on surfing, both for the sport itself and for the women who have followed in your footsteps?
I mean, I think that it's just been very humbling and very like uh, just so honorable to be always like mentioned in like people's when people give gratitude or give thanks to for to me for what I've done in the sport and what I've accomplished is such a really cool thing. I mean, my kids, it makes me proud because I know my kids are proud, and that makes me feel good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And because I kind of did it so much, I kind of feel like I did all this because of them, like they had such a big part in this, like I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. They wouldn't have made me the person I am if they, like to accomplish all of what I've accomplished. It's like they had a big part in that.
Oh,
So it's so fun to be able to mentor nowadays with everything that I've learned through whether because with when I was with Roxy Brand, we had a huge team of girls, and I took so much pride in working with a lot of the girls and making and having camps all around the world, and just doing fun exercises, training and stuff like that with them and serving with them, and lots of great memories. A lot of the girls I know now that are so successful were in this camp, so it makes me super proud. um,
wow.
I mean, you can name like the entire crew on tour except for the newer rookies, but it's such a proud moment to know that I've worked with all those girls at some point in their careers, um, and the ability to do so with the support I've gotten through the brands that I've worked with, and I still am in touch with them all, like through social media. Like we all get to stay in touch. We're all still running into each other and everywhere around the world. And there's a lot of young girls that surf here where I live, and
Mhm.
I get to work with them or just talk to them, or they approach me in the water, and it's just fun to connect with people and to be able to share. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, is there anything that you want listeners to keep an eye out for in your career? Anything that it's coming up in the next year that you would like to shout out?
I mean, I would. Well, I'm kind of currently looking for partnerships and collaborators and just
Very cool.
fun people to work with. So, I love to create product and surf. Not so much surfing; it could be surfing inspired. It's just the lifestyle really that I live from now, and
Yeah.
I just love you know all that stuff. You know what I mean? I'm really into that, and maybe going on surf trips and stuff in the future with taking people to exotic places and surfing with them. And I still do a surf camp here at home with little kids, so that's pretty fun, and
Oh,
it's a blast.
That sounds so fun. Well, we are coming to the end of our time, but before I let you go, I have three final questions for you that we call the thoughtful three. So, first up, you've had a major influence on young female surfers and athletes around the world. What advice would you give to someone starting out in a sport or career that traditionally isn't seen as for them?
Yeah, good question. I would say, create a game plan, get the support, get your family involved,
Yeah.
especially because they're the ones that are going to drive you to all the events and, look out for you there. But also, and in these times, I would also say, it doesn't matter how much you desire to do that sport, always have a plan B. Like I'm just saying, like everyone have a backup plan. Like, go through the steps, like make sure that you're doing things out of a place of love. And also just, if it's your dream, just follow it. Like don't veer from it. Like, but always just take it, slow, but at the same time be smart with it because number one, taking care of yourself, your physical self, and your mental health, because mental health is a big part of it.
Definitely. Well, what would you tell your younger self knowing what you know now?
All that. All that I just said. Because that's basically what my experience is like, I don't, I look back and think, God, I wish this, I wish that. And I wish my parents were on my side, and I wish I had taken care of my health physically and mentally. But I can't, you really can't, once it's all said and done, you can't go back and change any of it because it's made you who you are, but as a youngster, I would be like, I would have just said, obviously don't give up, because there's going to be times where you're going to want to walk away, and you just got to hang in there. It gets better. It gets better. Don't stop. Keep going. It gets better.
Yeah. Yeah. I got so much better. Well, and then lastly, what have you learned from the challenges that you faced in your career?
Oh, wow. I mean, it's been a crazy ride. I mean, a really close friend of mine said to me, never fight the current. Always go with the flow, or go with the current. Don't fight it, because it ends up taking you out of the situation.
I love that.
But it's like, it's true, because I've come up against so many obstacles and challenges and hardships and all that stuff. And it's challenging, especially like, not so much when you're younger, because you don't think like, oh my God, like, my world's over. But like, as you get older, you're like, oh shit, I'm getting older. I need a plan. but there's a lot of, there's just that thing where you're gonna have shit come at you a million miles an hour, but you just gotta fight through it. And there's always, I'm a big spiritual person. I'm into faith and hope and all that stuff. And I just find meaning in everything, and purpose and everything happens for a reason. So yeah.
Definitely. Well, I'm definitely going to be repeating "Don't fight the current" throughout the rest of my life. I love that.
Yeah, and that's a good advice for swimmers too. Like, they're actually
exactly. That's coming from someone who got sucked out in a current and had to get rescued. So definitely learned my lesson there. But thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate this. It's so much fun to get to talk with you. You're such a legend. I just really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.